Today we are learning from
from
Dr. Ray
Dr.
Higgins.
Ray Higgins, the Honorable Dr. Ray Higgins. And the topic is living within your power.
Yes. Be-da-ba. Be-da-da-ba-da-ba-da. Yes, yes, yes. For power. I'm not talking about filing for something called sovereignty or that's a whole nother thing. I'm not even dealing with that at all. Okay, this has nothing to do with the sovereign citizens movement, what I'm talking about. See, the reason why people join organizations and join groups, okay, to declare themselves or to declare their sovereignty, okay, the reason why they do that is because they don't know already that they are already a sovereign. You are a sovereign. You don't have to join an organization or a group to become a sovereign. You are a sovereign. Okay? This is what it means when we say homo sui juris. Okay? You walk and live under your own authority, under your own power. However, until you make that declaration, guess what? You are under someone else's authority. You've been under someone else's authority all your life. Just didn't know it. You thought I'm not talking about your parents now. I'm talking about this system in which we live called the government. Okay? And as long as you're under their authority, you are subject. You are a subject. You're subject to their authority. You're subject to their statutes. You're subject to their codes. Okay? Until you make a declaration to state otherwise. Okay? So I want to kind of just do an introduction to you for you today on what I'm talking about. All right, making the declaration, filing the proper paperwork. All right, to where you declare who you are, what you understand law to be, what you understand to be natural law. Okay? Which supersedes any other law, by the way. A lot of people don't know that. Okay? Do you know what natural law is? Okay? It's so important to understand. So, brothers and sisters, let me briefly introduce you to something, a document that is known as the Notice of Understanding and Intent and Claim of Right. It's literally a notice that you file with the government, okay, stating what you understand to be right, lawful, legal, however you want to say it, what you understand. And then in this document, what you're doing is you're literally giving the United States government and the government of the state in which you live or you're domiciled, you're literally giving them the opportunity, okay, to say that you are in error about what you understand. Then they have to show you where you are in error. Understand what I'm saying here? Point by point, they have to declare or respond to your understanding. If you are in error, they have to respond to you to let you know that you are in error. If they do not respond to you to let you know that you are in error, according to your declaration, what you understand to be now becomes contract. Yes, it becomes your contract. It becomes what is called a tacit contract, that which is assumed to be binding, okay, because of their acquiescence. The Attorney General did not respond to you. to let you know, no, you're wrong on this point. No, you're in error on this point. And being that they did not respond to you, you're stating as plain as day that if they don't respond within a certain period of time, that is they're automatically defaulting because of their acquiescence. And therefore what you have stated becomes your power. Okay? Now I'm kind of
This is Buffalo.
I'm gonna read through mine. The one I filed mine back in 2013. 2013, yes, I filed mine then. Okay, and I'm gonna just kind of skim through it to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Okay, again, you file this. What I'm saying, you file this by sending it to the Attorney General of the United States, and by sending it to the Attorney General of the state in which you live. All right. Now, I'm going to share with you again mine, and then you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. All right. This is what I sent to the United States government and to the government of the state I was living in at the time. It says, then I state my name, Ray Hagins, or Ray, okay. Then it says family of Hagins, okay. And there's a reason why it's written that way, okay, for recognition, okay, for a certain level of respect that it's a part of their English law, okay, as far as explaining, for they love things like, our family coat of arms, okay. Family has a lot of power. Family has a lot of meaning when it comes to law. They want to know, well, who's your family, okay? That's another discussion of itself. But it says, Ray, family of Hagins, the claimant herein. Listen to how I'm wording this, okay?
Yes, hello.
Present to any and all agents and or representatives of any and all local, state, and federal government agencies with a notice of understanding and intent, and I'm letting them know this is my understanding, and it is also what I intend to do. Okay? Unless you can prove me wrong. Now, if you can't prove me wrong, then what I'm letting you know is my understanding, and what I intend is to claim the right that I'm going to claim. Understand this, man. This is deep, okay? And it goes on to say, this is how it works. I'm sending this missive as a courtesy.
Okay, yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Okay? In order to avoid any confusion or potential conflict. In other words, I'm letting you know, Mr. Authority, I'm letting you know up front, okay? I come in peace. I'm not trying to go against the law. I'm not trying to go against the Constitution. I'm not trying to go against the United States or anything like that. That's not my intent, okay? I'm coming and I'm sending you this missive to avoid any confusion, all right, that may arise here. It goes on to say, I am expanding my reach of my disclosure in order to maintain my honor and to ensure maximum clarity between myself and all agents and agencies of government. Within the body of this letter, please expect a notice of understanding and intent and claim of right in order to ensure maximum clarity amongst all parties. Again, it's very important how you present your argument, how you present yourself, okay? I'm not coming through the door hollering Black Power, okay? Or coming through the door acting angry and I want to destroy the structure. No, okay, brothers and sisters, I learned something many years ago. Okay, I've gotten away from the notes here. I'll get right back to it. I learned something many years ago, and that is this: when your arm is in the lion's mouth, you have to be careful how you talk to the lion. Did you get that? When your arm is in the lion's mouth, you have to be careful how you talk to the lion. If you want to keep your arm, that is. Okay? Or if you want to stay alive, that is. All right? We are living in what I call the belly of the beast. And even within the belly of the beast, you have certain authority, certain rights. But those rights are meaningless to you if you don't know you have them. In fact, there's an old adage that says, he who does not know his rights is no better off than he who has no rights. Okay, understand this. You need to know how to walk and live in your power. But you just can't do it. You have to say something. You have to declare your power. All right? It's just not automatic. Because the way the system is designed, what is automatic is for you to be under their power. For you to be a ward of the state from the day you're born to the day you die. Okay? And it's called the doctrine of parens patriae. Don't take my word for what I'm saying, brothers and sisters. That's Latin. Parens, it's spelled, and write this down, please. Parens. That's the first word. Parens. Parens. The second word is patriae. Patraie. I believe I spelled it correctly. Patraie. Parens patriae. The doctrine of parens patriae, brothers and sisters. And again, the masses don't even know about this. Okay, so how can you speak against something you don't even know about? How can you resist or refuse something that you don't even know about that's happening? Okay, in your place or under to represent you or by your authority, but you didn't agree to it. How did he do that? Okay, again. Parens patriae. Yes, parens patriae is actually a doctrine in law that says, and I'm going to just give it to you in layman's terms. Parens patriae is the Latin doctrine that says, since you don't know how to be your own parent, we will parent you. Yes, that's why it's called parens patriae, because you are not smart enough, because you are not intelligent enough, because you don't have enough sense to make the right decision for yourself. The United States government will make the decision for you. That's what parens patriae is. Okay? So until you declare otherwise, until you actually give them notification that you no longer agree, because they did this without your consent. In order for a contract to be legal and binding, the parties involved have to mutually agree to it. Understand this, man. Okay, you have been contracted without your knowledge. If you didn't agree to it, that contract is void. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about this document. Then what we'll do is schedule a workshop, and you guys can register for the workshop, and you will be able to complete your own documents. Okay, we'll break it all down to you, answer whatever questions you have at that time for the workshop of how to file this, how to go about it, And well, let's understand what's in it first of all. Okay, let's hear a little bit more about this document and what power you would have after filing it. You don't have it yet, but after filing it, okay? It goes on to say, and this is what's in mind, as a peaceful man, notice I said, as a peaceful man, right? I didn't say as an angry man, okay? I didn't say as a black man. It's not necessary to say that. What is necessary to say is as a peaceful man, because you're filing a very powerful document here. Okay, as a peaceful man or as a peaceful woman, if it's a female filing the document, as a peaceful man desiring to avoid conflict. Again, notice the wording here, desiring to avoid conflict and live lawfully within maximum freedom. I have recently been studying the history of the United States along with its legal systems and have come to some very interesting conclusions. After reading various acts, ACTS, after reading various acts and exploring the way language is used in those acts, I have realized that lawful and legal are not always the same. It also appears that all acts and statutes in the United States are only contracts based in commerce. Therefore, I am now contacting the various government officials named above, meaning again, the Attorney General of the United States and the Attorney General of the state in which you live, right? Contacting them named above in the hopes that, notice how I'm wording this, in the hopes that someone can either confirm or correct my understanding. Notice how I'm saying this, okay? I'm submitting this. If I am in error, I need it to be corrected. Correct me if I'm wrong, okay? That kind of thing. It goes on to say, if you choose to respond with corrections, I must insist that you do so within 14 days of the service of this letter. You can say 14 days or 21 days, however many days you want to give them, but it has to be reasonable time according to law. According to Black's Law Dictionary, reasonable time for a response is any time after 14 days. Okay? If you say respond within 3 days, that's not reasonable time for turnaround. Okay, all right. So it says again, I insist that you do so within 14 days of service of this letter in writing, by way of or via registered mail, and provide proof of your claim under oath or attestation with full commercial liability and penalty of perjury. In other words, if you try to tell me that what I stated here is not true and find out that it is true, then you're guilty of perjury, okay, and can be judged accordingly. Goes on to say, a lack of response. And by the way, I can tell you right now, they're not going to respond to this document. You're not going to get a response. And the truth of the matter is, you don't want a response. Okay? You don't want a response because first of all, you're not saying anything in your document, okay, that's wrong or illegal. You're just declaring your understanding. And your understanding becomes your law. Okay? Unless they can prove you otherwise. It goes on to say here, okay, a lack of response or response that does not contain proof of my mistaken understanding on a point-by-point basis will be assumed to imply agreement with my understanding. Failure to dispute the claims made herein will result in an automatic default judgment and a permanent and irrevocable estoppel by acquiescence. In essence, brothers and sisters, what that's saying is, if you cannot dispute or disprove what I've said, point by point, okay? Not just one general statement saying each point that I've mentioned. You have to, if you can't invalidate what I'm saying, then what I've said, it must be assumed that what I'm saying is in fact my law, okay? And from this point forward, okay, I have what is called automatic estoppel. Estoppel, spelled E-S-T-O-P-P-E-L, I think, means that it stops right here, right now. It can't go any further. All right, so when I'm presented with a situation, all right, such as a traffic stop, for example, all right, and law enforcement officer sees this document, that has to stop right there. You can't go any further. Yeah, okay, let's read on. It goes on to say here, now specifically in the United States, I understand that there is both a common law and a statute law jurisdiction, which is interesting. I'm running out of time here. Which is interesting because I also understand that a statute is defined as a legislated rule of a society. Listen to this. A statute, according to Black's Law's Dictionary, right, is defined as a legislated rule of a society which has been given the force of law upon members of that society. Follow me. Understand again, a statute, for example, a state statute in the state in which you live, right? Okay? A statute is defined as a legislated rule of a society which has been given the force of law upon members of that society. A society, okay, being a fictional legal entity such as a corporation. In other words, how are you subject to the statutes of a society that you're not a part of? Okay? Going on. Goes on to say, I also understand that the government of the United States is not a nation as I thought it was, occupying a geographical location, but instead merely a corporation with de facto authority rather than lawful authority. This is deep. What I'm reading here, the masses of us, the people, you're not taught this in school, okay? They can't teach this to the people. Do you realize that if everybody understood the power that this document contains, then that means that the United States would not have power over them. Let me finish reading. Let me read some more here, okay? I'll go back and begin that paragraph again. I also understand that the government of the United States is not a nation as I thought it was, occupying a geographical location, but instead merely a corporation with de facto authority rather than lawful. This corporation can only make corporate or contract law, okay, that has the force of law only upon its consenting members. When did you consent to be governed by whatever statute or law you're being governed under or by? When did you consent to be governed by it? Understand this, man. It's some deep stuff here, okay? Only upon its consenting members. From my research, the law of the land is the peaceful common law which is not influenced by acts or statutes. Under common law, the rights, freedoms, and duties of private individuals have long been established, and unlike statute law, common law has had a progression towards more freedom and personal responsibility rather than less. Among the rights and freedoms, oh my goodness, understand this. Among the rights and freedoms understood by common law are such things as the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, property, and the use thereof, privacy, peace, and the ability to travel freely in public without harassment or intimidation. The obligations and duties of those living under common law are essentially to ensure that one does not infringe or allow others to infringe upon those unalienable rights and freedoms. Okay? Understand this is some deep stuff, brothers and sisters. This is power. But it's not power if you don't know you have it. Okay? Once you understand your power, you can live in that power. Continuing, it goes on to say, I've also learned that the rights of a free spiritual being cannot be lawfully limited without consent, as would imply slavery. Effectively, rights are not bestowed upon one by another unless the first gives his or her consent, or the first is the lawful property of the second. The very nature of the concept of consent, follow that now, the very nature of the concept of consent is that it can only exist among equals with full disclosure and without coercion. Now, I go on to state in this document, I do not recall ever being sold or purchased as a slave, nor do I recall giving my free consent to be governed or represented by any governmental agent, although at times I have been deceived and intimidated into submission. Although the various rights and freedoms are self-evident and unalienable, in order to be, follow this now, okay, in order for lawful representation to exist, there must be mutual consent. And that consent may be revoked for any reason depending upon the nature of the specific contract between the parties. In other words, brothers and sisters, when did you give anyone consent to govern you? You didn't. No, when did you give anyone consent, okay, that the decision that they make in the state capitol would apply to you? You are a free, spiritual, moral being. No one can assume that authority, that they have the right to control or govern your spiritual conviction about a thing. Unless, but you know what? They're doing it. That's how they run this country. They're doing it, okay? Unless you file the proper paperwork to let them know that you no longer consent, that you revoke any consent or any understanding that they may have to make a decision for you without your consent. Okay? Just understand this, and that's how we've been living, man. Okay? So the closing paragraph, or not the closing paragraph, but the ending paragraph to this section of the document says, I am hereby notifying all who read this and any other interested parties that I have revoked my consent to be governed by fictitious corporate entities with which I do not have a subsisting contract. I declare that I am neither a child nor a slave, but a free man capable of administering my own affairs. Again, why did I state that? Because the United States government automatically appropriates something called parents' patry over its citizens.
And then they tell you,
which again is the doctrine that says I have the right and the power to be your parent and make decisions for you.
I don't have mine up.
I don't want them making decisions for me that I didn't agree to.
I leave too many papers.
Now, if I agree to it, if I agree to the decision, that's one thing. But to just make a decision and I don't agree to it, Oh, no. No,
Give me
man.
citizenship.
Oh,
That's
wow.
that's a
It's based
dictatorship.
on my DNA test.
Great. Great.
Okay. So then it goes on to state the notice
you
of
wanna know what?
understanding and claim
What?
intent and claim of right.
People go over there
And
with American
I'll
dollar.
just read
No,
very quickly
Ghana
through these points.
is very
Now, these are the
expensive.
points that
No,
the
it's
attorney
not.
generals,
Let me
or I should-
finish.
the attorneys
If you
general,
want to go over there
would
and
have to
maintain
prove
your American
wrong.
lifestyle, Ghana is
Point by
cheap
point.
if you want to live like the
Okay, not
locals.
one
But a lot
big
of Americans
statement where your
don't know
document
and
is
they
in
don't
error.
live
No,
like a local.
they'd have, according to the
Right.
contracts as stated,
If you want
they would
the
have to
American
prove
lifestyle,
line by line
you're gonna pay.
if it is in error or not.
Well,
When I
honestly,
read
Danny,
this one, if it's good, check.
but
Read the next statement, if it's good, check.
I'm just
Read the
saying.
next statement, if it's good, check.
well,
Then read the next one. Oh, this one
Danny,
is
I'm
not
70
correct.
years old,
Okay,
man.
this one is in error. Then they would have to let me know that that statement in particular is in error and why it is in error. If they
But
cannot show me
If I
that,
was much
follow me.
younger,
If they
Uh-huh.
cannot show me that,
I'd
then
be
that
looking
means that
to
this
relocate to another
document
country.
becomes
Oh, yeah?
my
Right now, I just
contract
want residency in another
the
country.
United States
Oh, yeah.
government.
It's
And
hot.
this becomes my law.
I can run.
And the
Let's just
strongest
say all
document, the
outbreaks
strongest
out.
thing in a
China and
courtroom
Russia
is a
got
contract.
missiles pointed at us.
Okay?
I wanna
So let's
be able
read
to leave this country
some
and
of the
go
statements that I
somewhere
have
else
in here.
safe.
Right.
Whereas it is my understanding, you know, I'm going to start off each statement by saying, it is my understanding. It is my understanding, okay, Attorney General, it's my understanding. And that's why I'm asking you if I'm wrong in my understanding, then prove to me or show me where I am in error on this particular statement. If you can't, then this statement
I don't
now
know.
becomes my law, and everything else is automatic estoppel.
And then all the way
after this
down,
matter
all the way
goes into
south.
effect.
I want to apply for Brazil as well.
So let's see what some of
Oh.
the points that I've stated.
If I gotta get the
Whereas it
football
is my
here,
understanding, the
I don't
United
wanna
States
know-
of
I wanna
America, the United States of America is a common law jurisdiction. That's the first statement. Not a statutory law jurisdiction, a common law jurisdiction. Okay? My next statement. Whereas it is my understanding, equality before the law is paramount and mandatory. All right? My next statement. Whereas it is my understanding that a statute is defined as a legislated rule of a society which has been given the force of law. My next statement. And whereas it is my understanding a society is defined as a number of people joined by mutual consent in deliberate determination and act for a common goal. Am I correct? Okay, because if that statement is correct, then that means I'm not a part of this society because I didn't mutually agree to it. I didn't consent to it. Okay, the next statement. Whereas it is my understanding, the only form of government recognized as lawful in the United States of America is a representative one. True or false? My next statement. Whereas it is my understanding, representation requires mutual consent. True or false? Next statement. Whereas it is my understanding that in the absence of mutual consent, neither representation nor governance can exist. True or false? Next statement. Whereas it is my understanding, those who have a social security number are in fact employees of the federal government and thus are bound by the statutes created by the federal government. True or false? Whereas it is my understanding that it is lawful to abandon one's social security number. True or false? Whereas it is my understanding people in the United States of America have a right to revoke or deny consent to be represented and thus governed. True or false? Again, brothers and sisters, if you don't know your rights, you're no better off than those who have no rights. Okay? Next statement. Whereas it is my understanding, if anyone does revoke or deny consent, they exist free of government control and statutory restraints. True or false? Whereas, next statement, whereas a free man on the land, or a free woman, if it's a female, a free woman on the land has lawfully revoked consent and does exist free of statutory restrictions, obligations, and limitations. True or false? Again, now remember, the authorities that this document is sent to would have to prove point by point, statement by statement. If it's false, show me where I'm wrong. If I'm not wrong, then what I'm stating now becomes my law, becomes my sovereign rule. Okay? So now I state, whereas I, and in my name, Ray Hagins, family of Hagins, Ray, family of Hagins, am a free man on the land. I'm declaring that. If you don't declare it, as they say in law, if it's not written down, it don't exist. Whereas I, as a free man on the land, and whereas it is my understanding that acting peacefully within community standards does not breach the peace, and that's very important to say, because that's what this is about, brothers and sisters, okay? When you write this document, when you submit this document, you want to be sure that they understand you are not trying to breach the peace. You're not trying to be anti-government. You're not trying to start some kind of organization or group to go against the government or other people. Okay? You're simply declaring what you understand as a peaceful person on the land. Next statement says, whereas it is my understanding that any action for which one can apply for and receive a license must itself be a fundamentally lawful action. Next statement. Whereas I am a free man on the land who operates with full responsibility and not a child, I do not see the need to ask permission to engage in lawful and peaceful activities, especially from those who claim limited liability. True or false? Whereas it is my understanding, a bylaw is defined as a rule of a corporation. True or false? Whereas it is my understanding that corporations are legal fictions and require contracts in order to claim authority or control over other parties. True or false? Where it is my understanding, legal fictions lack a soul. Follow this. Where it is my understanding that legal fictions lack a soul and cannot exert any control over those who are thus blessed and operate with respect to that knowledge as only a fool would allow soulless fictions to dictate one's actions. True or false? My next statement. Whereas it is my understanding that I have a right to use my property without having to pay for the use of or enjoyment of it. True or false? Yeah, all right. Yeah, I can hear the questions in the ether coming from the questions. Okay, we'll answer all of the questions when we do the workshop. All right, and again, the workshop is tentatively for Tuesday, March the 8th. Tentatively, okay. I got so much going on right now, but tentatively March 8th. But let me finish this document, then we'll talk more about that. Next statement. Whereas it is my understanding that a summons, that's right, a summons, okay, is merely an invitation to attend. That's right, like a citation that you get or a summons when you get pulled over. Okay, it's my understanding that a summons is merely an invitation to attend, and the ones issued by the United States or any of its agencies creates no obligation or dishonor if ignored. Okay? Whereas it is my understanding, peace officers, okay, or we call them cops or law enforcement officers, peace officers have a duty to distinguish between statutes and law. And those who attempt to enforce statutes against a free man on the land are in fact breaking the law. Next statement. Whereas I have the power to refuse intercourse or interaction with peace officers who have not observed me breach the peace. Let me say that again. I'm sure some of you guys out there would love to hear that sound right there. Okay, this becomes your law this becomes your estoppel. Whereas I have the power to refuse intercourse or interactions. Okay, something's blocking my screen here. Bear with me. Okay. I have the power to refuse intercourse or interactions with peace officers who have not observed me breach the peace. In other words, this living under the power of common law pretty much states that you are not under statute law, or you are no longer a statutory law citizen. All right. And as long as you are not doing any damage or harm to another person or their property, okay, hey, hands off. If you don't see me doing harm or damage to another person or their property, okay, you have nothing to say to me. You're not seeing. I'm not breaching the peace. Okay. Next statement. Whereas permanent estoppel by acquiescence, barring any peace officer or prosecutor from bringing charges against a free man on the land under any act is created if this claim is not responded to in the stated fashion and time. Let me read that paragraph to you again, because that paragraph is saying if what I've submitted is not invalidated within the specified time, then everything that I stated, it becomes law for Ray Hagins. It becomes law for you. You follow what I'm saying? Or however you want to edit it or augment it, it becomes your document. It becomes your power. It becomes your law. So understand that paragraph again. Whereas permanent estoppel by acquiescence by any peace officer or prosecutor for bringing charges against a free man on the land under any act is created if this claim is not responded to in the stated fashion and time. And again, automatic estoppel, permanent estoppel means this matter cannot go any further. That's where the stop goes. Okay. And then, okay, next statement paragraph says, therefore be it now known to any and all concerned and affected parties that I, my name there, family of Hagins, a free man on the land, do hereby state clearly.
So y'all
See
tell
what I
me,
mean when I say
what do y'all think about it?
declare,
Leave a comment,
declare
like,
who you are,
share,
declare
subscribe.
what you are, declare
Thank
what
you for all my
understand.
subscribers so far.
Declare it. If you don't declare it, they're going to declare it for you. Okay, so it goes on to say, therefore be it now known to any and all concerned and affected parties that I, my name, family of Hagins, a free man on the land, do hereby state clearly, specifically, and unequivocally my intent to peacefully and lawfully exist free of all statutory obligations and restrictions, and to maintain all rights at law to trade, exchange, or barter. That's your paragraph of power. That's what I would call it. My paragraph of power. Okay? Furthermore, goes on to say, furthermore, I claim that those actions that these actions are not outside of my community's standards, and I will in fact support said community in our desire for truth and maximum freedom. Furthermore, I claim the right to engage in these actions and further claim that all property held by me is held under a claim of right. Furthermore, I claim that anyone who interferes with my lawful activities after having been served notice of this claim and who fails to properly dispute or make lawful counterclaim is breaking the law, cannot claim good faith or color of right, and that such transgressions will be dealt with in a properly convened court de jour, a court of the day. Furthermore, I claim that the courts in the United States are de facto and are not in fact in the profitable business of I'm sorry, not I didn't say not in fact, and are in fact okay in the profitable business of conducting witnessing and facilitating transactions of security interest, and I further claim they require the consent of both parties prior to providing any such services. Did y'all get that paragraph? Another paragraph of power. Let me read it to you one more time. Furthermore, I claim that the courts in the United States are de facto and are in fact in the profitable business of conducting, witnessing, and facilitating transactions of security interest, and I further claim they require the consent of both parties. The consent of both parties to providing any such services, true or false. Furthermore, I claim all transactions of security interest require the consent of both parties, and I do hereby deny consent to any transaction of a security interest issuing under any act for as herein as a free man on the land. I am not subject to any act. True or false? Okay, here's a good one. Furthermore, I claim my fee schedule. This is very important. I have a fee schedule in my document here. Okay? This is my claim of right. I claim my fee schedule for any transgressions by law enforcement officers, government principals, or agents or justice system participants My fee schedule is $500 per hour or any portion thereof if I am questioned, interrogated, or in any way detained, harassed, or otherwise regulated, and $2,000 per hour or any part thereof if I am handcuffed, transported, incarcerated, or subjected to any adjudication process without my express written and notarized consent. True or false? If I cannot make that claim, then tell me why I cannot make it. Otherwise, my fee schedule is now my law. Furthermore, I claim the right to use a notary public to secure payment of the aforementioned fee schedule against any and all transgressors who may by their actions or omissions harm me or my interests directly or by proxy in any way. All right. Furthermore, I claim the right to convene a proper court du jour, court of the day, in order to address any potentially criminal actions of any law enforcement officers, government principals, or agents or justice system participants who, having been served this notice of claim, fails to dispute or discuss or make lawful counterclaim, and then interfere by act or omission with the lawful exercise of properly claimed and established rights and freedoms. Notice I state here, okay, that once they have been served this notice, and that's why when I do this workshop, I tell the students of the workshop to be sure to carry about 5 copies of this with you at all times, okay? Keep a carry in your car, a carry in your briefcase, a carry in your motorcycle, keep a copy. I meant to say a copy. Wherever you keep copies at hand, okay? Because you never know when you need to display it. All right. For example, I remember I was pulled over here in the state of Georgia. Okay, and even though I ID'd myself, okay, that the officer was very disrespectful. And he said, well, listen, he said that don't mean nothing here. So I said, well, maybe this will make a difference. And I gave him my notice of understanding, intent, and claim of right. And I said, and I specifically encourage you to read page 5 there where you see my fee schedule before you start wasting time. Okay. He said, I don't know what this is. I said, I know that you don't know what it is. That's why I'm making you aware of it. Okay. He said, well, I'm gonna have to check with my supervisor. Okay, that's exactly what I want you to do. In fact, I'm gonna allow the time for you to communicate with your supervisor to not count in this encounter. Supervisor came and validated the authenticity of this document, especially after seeing that it had been served, okay, to the Attorney General of the United States, and it was therefore now a tacit contract. This is your power. Know your power. Okay, I didn't even finish reading the statements here. Okay. Furthermore, I claim the law of agent and principal applies, and that service upon one is service upon the other. What that's simply saying is, if I serve this document on a representative, okay, for the city of Atlanta, or it could be a police officer or whatever, the entire city of Atlanta is served. Okay, service to agent is service to principal. Okay, service to principal is service to agent. That's what that means. Furthermore, I claim the right to deal with any counterclaims or disputes publicly and in an open forum, using discussion and negotiation, and to capture on videotape said discussion and negotiation for whatever lawful purpose as I see fit. Okay, goes on to say, affected parties wishing to dispute the claims made herein. And again, this is what you're serving to Attorney General of the state you live in, Attorney General of the country. Affected parties wishing to dispute the claims that I've made herein or to make their own counterclaims must respond appropriately within 14 days of service of this document, okay, this notice of action, of this action. Okay, you can give them however much time you want to. Okay, 14 days. I gave 14. You can give 21 day notice. All right, give plenty of time or a reasonable amount of time. Okay, again, in a court of law, reasonable amount of time is 14 days to respond. Okay. Responses must be under oath of attestation upon full commercial liability and penalty of perjury, and registered in a notary office no later than 14 days from the date of the original service, as attested to by way of certificate of service. In other words, after you send this in, you will send this in registered mail. All right. Notice I said registered mail, not certified mail. Okay. Difference is registered mail can only be opened by the person that it is addressed to. Certified mail can be opened by anybody. Okay. But registered mail means only the person that's being addressed to have to open it. Meaning, so the attorney general himself or herself will have to open it. Now, of course, they probably have their secretary, their staff do it, but registered mail means that their eyes have saw this document and did not prove you wrong. When you get back your registered receipts, okay, you will attach them, make color copies, have it notarized, or it'll already be notarized, but have it attested to and attach it to your documents that you carry around with you. That means that's your proof of service that this document, which is now a legal document, has been served, and it is now a tacit contract in the law for me. Okay, that's how that goes. All right, then it goes on to say, it states failure to register a dispute against the claims made herein will result in an automatic default judgment and a permanent and irrevocable estoppel by acquiescence, barring the bringing of charges under any statute or act against myself, free man on the land, and my name. Okay, and then it's the place where I filed it. Okay, and the date that I filed it, and of course me as the claimant, and of course the notary attestation to the document as well. That's your power. That's where you walk. Again, brothers and sisters, when you don't know who you are, it's kind of hard to stand tall in that. Okay. Again, I'm already getting text messages here. Texting said, when is the workshop? When is the work? Okay. Again, I'm aiming for Tuesday. Let me do this again.